If you know anything about me, one of them would be a loaf bread, and this one has got to be one of them, chocolate artisan bread. First of all, this bread only requires a quarter teaspoon of yeast, so please seal the package with the remaining yeast tight and put it in the freezer. The four basic ingredients in artisan breads are flour, water, yeast, and salt, but we're making chocolate today, so in a large mixing bowl, whisk together 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, yep that's right, all-purpose flour, a half teaspoon of instant espresso powder, 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, a half teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. I'm using instant rapid rise dry yeast. Now making artisan bread is really simple. They are no-knead and you just let it rest overnight. And you can customize it to whichever flavor or extras you want. When you're making this bread, don't worry too much about details like whether the dough is supposed to be like this or that. Just give this bread your best with your simple, pure heart. Whisk all dry ingredients well together. Don't worry about the cocoa lumps. Then throw in a handful, about 1/4 cup of chopped walnuts and some chocolate chips. They are optional, but the walnuts are perfect with chocolate. By the way, you actually can't taste the chocolate flavor, well just a hint, but the cocoa powder gives the bread a nice dark color. Now pour in 3/4 cup of water. You don't need to worry about the temperature, room temp water will work. So mix the water into the dry ingredients using a wooden spoon and just stir until you see that the flour has pretty much absorbed all the water. The dough should be a little bit sticky and it will look messy and not doughy, but that's how it's supposed to be. Cover the bowl with plastic wrap tightly and leave just on the countertop for anywhere between 12 to 18 hours. I'll leave the full directions on my schedule in the description. The next morning, the dough will look like this. It should be puffy, a little jiggly, and somewhat loose, and should have small bubbles on top like these. Now remember, this is not a standard bread dough, so it's normal if it does not double in size. Now even I don't have a Dutch oven, so today I will be using a stainless steel pot and the result is just perfect. Your pot should be big enough to fit in your dough. I would say the pot should be 3 to 4 quarts. I'm using this one. Make sure your lid, the top or the knob is not plastic. You might even be able to remove it. I will leave more details on OKs and AutoKs options in the description. So put the pot with the lid on into the oven and start preheating your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. While the oven and pot with the lid are preheating, go back to your dough and using a spatula, scrape down the sides and transfer the dough to a well-floured surface. You can see this nice fermented dough has many beautiful structure to it and you can smell the strong scent, almost like wine, that shows the yeast fermentation, a smell made by nature. Then flour the top too. This is going to be very sticky. Now just work your way by sort of working with the dough and just turning it a few times using a scraper. Then form it into a round ball by tucking the sides underneath and rotating the ball every time. Just like so. After that, prepare a parchment paper and put the dough onto it. Mine turned into an oval, which is still a beautiful shape. So fix the shape if necessary. Then dust the top of the bread with more flour so it looks nicer when baked, when it's done. And then score the top of the dough with a serrated knife if you want to. Then cover the dough with a towel and let it sit there until the oven is preheated. So once the oven is 450 degrees Fahrenheit, mine takes about 20 minutes. Take the pot out. Be very careful because it is very hot, so wear oven mittens. Then just take the parchment paper with the dough on into the pot carefully and gently. Cover the lid and bake for 30 minutes. Make sure the lid is secure and tight. Alright, here it is after 30 minutes and take a look at this. This is just so amazing, isn't it? I get all excited. Don't turn off the oven yet because one last step is to bake for 15 more minutes at 450 degrees Fahrenheit without the lid. So first take off the lid and put it into the oven. After 15 minutes, there is your finished fresh baked bread, ready to be enjoyed in the morning. Peel off the parchment paper and let it cool for 10 minutes or so on a cooling rack. And can you believe it? Homemade artisan bread. I was still able to make this bread without a Dutch oven and the crust is still very crunchy and crispy. And since today is Valentine's Day and this bread is chocolate, why not show some love and make this bread for your family? And listen to this. These large air pockets are the bubbles formed by this bread, and that's what makes this bread so soft on the inside. Pair this bread with honey and you'll fall in love with this lovely homemade artisan bread.